It's pound the like, share the video out.
So what was the next one? Then he says, pound for pound, yeah, pound, right?
Pound.
He wasn't one of the strongest people in the world. Okay, so when I'd like him to tell me where he came across Bruce Lee on camera, right? Or on audio saying, hey, you know, pound for pound, I'm one of the strongest people in the world. Nonsense.
Yeah.
My belief is that that came about. August of 1998, I think, is when John Little's book, The Art of Expressing the Human Body, was released.
That's the first book I read, Bruce Lee.
Right? Okay.
About Bruce Lee.
Then, several years later, Bruce Lee appears, I counted the copies that I have, 6 times on the cover of Muscle and Fitness.
Wow.
Okay? So, and I think that started perhaps, let's say it started, I know the covers, I don't know the dates, but one of them is like 2012. So let's say that the first time he appeared was 2006.
Right.
So now he's been dead.
But he's still appearing.
Now he's been dead for 33 years. Okay? So 33 years after Bruce Lee passed away, an editor commissions a writer at Muscle and Fitness to do a cover story on him, and maybe they're using the art of expressing the human body as source material. Right? And Crowder makes fun that Bruce Lee squatted 95 pounds. Right? So at what point was Bruce Lee training to bulk up?
Right, exactly.
Like Bolo in Enter the Dragon, right? Now, if you read about Bruce Lee, you'd find out that Bruce Lee's intention was never
to bulk,
to get that big.
Exactly.
Okay, Bruce Lee wanted to stay small. Crowder always talks about him being 120 pounds or 110 pounds and whatever. And he talks about Bruce Lee being the same size as his sidekick, Not Gay Jared. If you take a look at Not Gay Jared, I mean, bless his heart, right? The guy has some kind of physical affliction, so I think that's why he's so skinny or what have you. But to compare Not Gay Jared's physique with Not Gay Jared, he could pay Muscle and Fitness, he'd have to pay him $1 million, right? And agree to be made fun of in order for a story in Muscle and Fitness to appear about him. Okay? That's like the only way.
That's the only way.
So for a so-called intelligent person like Steven Crowder to kind of make, maybe it's just jokes.
Well, you know,
maybe
some
it's
people
just jokes.
Right? I hear you.
I don't know. Maybe it's just jokes.
Sometimes people don't follow through on their thinking.
Right? Then the other one is something about being the most prolific martial artist in the world. Well, I don't know exactly what it is he means by prolific. Is he talking about whether or not Bruce Lee wrote the most books? No. Made the most movies? No. When did Bruce Lee ever say, I'm one of the most prolific martial artists in the world? Never. Never. Right? So what is he talking about? Where does he get this idea? I don't know what his source material is for that particular myth. So then he, that's where he makes fun, and then he goes on to say, okay, so myth number 1 is that Bruce Lee was the first to mix the arts and therefore the father of MMA. And that's when he engages in the same like false humility, right? Because he talks about that Bruce Lee was forward thinking, and he did discuss principles of mixing the arts. But listen to this. Then he makes the ridiculous claim that Bruce Lee merely talked about that stuff, but never trained that way. He hardly grappled. Again, taking it back to Bruce Lee wasn't doing no BJJ, so therefore he could never really have been training, right? He could never really have been cross-training. Oh, I don't know, right? I don't know. I think Bruce Lee actually is one of the original cross-trainers in the modern era, right? Maybe, yes, it wasn't extensively ground-fighting BJJ style. So, but because it wasn't that, he's a farce, and he doesn't know anything about martial arts, and he's a compulsive liar.
That's insane.
All right?
That's insane. Guys, what do you think about this? Comment below. Let us know where you're from. Let us know your opinion. Make sure you're liking, pounding the hearts, pounding the hearts.
And then, of course, he fails to point out what everybody knows. The person responsible for the phrase, Bruce Lee is the father of mixed martial arts, is Dana White.
Yeah.
Why doesn't he acknowledge that, which everybody knows? See, that's how you show yourself to be an idiot.
Yeah.
Because everybody knows that Dana White said that.
Exactly.
So he doesn't say, and then Dana White, of course, said this, and then ascribe the blame for the myth to Dana White. He keeps doing it in a way that blames Bruce Lee.
Yeah. When Dana was actually smart, he aligned himself with Bruce Lee because he knew Bruce Lee was like the icon and is the icon of martial art. Everybody knows who Bruce Lee is, like we've been talking about.
Right, and the truth is, look, of course, business-wise, it was very smart, right? But then the reality of it is what? Look at the fight scene, less than 30 seconds into the beginning of Enter the Dragon, and it's what? Bareback, Speedos, finger gloves, kick, punch, trap, grapple, and victory through submission.
Exactly.
This is 1972. This is 41 years before Royce Gracie and UFC 1 and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu blows up all across the world. He can't find it in his heart to give Bruce Lee credit for that.
That's insane.
You can't bring up something like that. Steven Crowder is not smart enough to bring up something like that. The best he can do is to call Bruce Lee a compulsive liar, knew nothing about martial arts. So here's a guy who knew nothing about martial arts, was just a popular actor. Because he says that.
That's insane.
He says that. He was just a popular actor. Yet, I mean, look, am I lying?
No, that's
you
what
heard
he's
it,
saying.
right? Knew nothing about martial arts. So a guy who is just a popular actor and knows nothing about martial arts is able to light the world on fire with his martial art choreography in Enter the Dragon, right? Look, Crowder is such an, he's such a, I'll use nice language, right?
We can't find that nice language.
He doesn't even talk about, what do you call it?
If Bruce was alive, the UFC would have Bruce and... That's funny.
Would have what?
It cut out for a second. I didn't get the full question.
Yeah. Right. So, how about this? Do you think that when Fist of Fury opened up, and they had to shut it down and spend a week rearranging Hong Kong traffic patterns and then reopen the movie? I ain't never heard that happen for Tom Cruise or Brad Pitt or Arnold Schwarzenegger or what's the guy from Gladiator? Russell Crowe, right? Never heard that happen, right? Traffic jams because of a movie, right? But no. Do you think that that's just because Bruce Lee was a popular actor and knew nothing about martial arts? So the people who flocked to his movies, even in the early days, they did that just because he was a popular actor. They didn't do that because his martial arts in the movie, they were like, wow, this is good stuff.
Yeah.
What kind of person in 2017, August, September, says that Bruce Lee knew nothing about martial arts?
It doesn't even make sense.
You know, because you trained in wrestling and jiu-jitsu somewhere, you qualified to say that? I don't know. So then he shows a book on pancreation to illustrate that Bruce Lee was not the first to mix the arts. Yeah, we know that. Bruce Lee never said, hello world, I'm the first to mix the arts. And then I'll bet you this. With a personal library of over 2,000 books, I bet you if that book is an older book, because I didn't look up when it was published, I bet you if it's an older book, Bruce Lee probably had it, right?
Exactly.
He probably had it.
Exactly.
Then, dig this. He tries to infer that Tony Danza, you know Tony Danza? Here's what he says. He says Tony Danza trained in boxing and wrestling. So he cross-trained more than Bruce Lee. So I think what he's trying to say here is that Tony Danza, who's an actor,
Yeah.
is a better example of a cross-training martial artist
Than Bruce
Lee. Because Tony Danza trained in boxing and wrestling.
Yeah. That's silly.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Silly.
Well, we know Bruce Lee trained in Wing Chun. We know he trained Choi Foot. We know that he trained judo up in Seattle a little bit. We know he spent some time, I mean not extensive time, but some time with Jean LaBelle, right? We know that his boxing training, he probably developed that on his own. The fencing, there is, I don't know for sure, but I know for sure his brother Peter was a fencer, so that might have been where his ideas on fencing came from. But then he had an extensive library.
Yeah. He always kept
So
learning.
he was self-educating,
Yeah.
right? And self-teaching to a certain extent. Okay, so but Tony Danza is a better example, right? You know what I'd love to do is to ask Tony Danza, hey, there's a guy on the YouTube that's saying that you are a better example of a cross-training martial artist than Bruce Lee. What do you think Tony Danza would think of that?
Oh, no,
you think Tony Danza would be like, oh yes, I think that guy Steven Crowder, he's brilliant. He's got to be really smart. He's probably the smartest martial artist there's ever been. You think Tony Danza would come up with that?
I highly doubt it.
Anyhow, right? So,
Guys, hit the like button, make sure you're sharing this out, pushing the stream out. We want to get as many people on here as possible. Make sure you're sharing it out. Comment where you're from. Let us know where you're listening in from.
all right, so then he goes to myth number 2, that about Bruce Lee being the greatest fighter of all time.
Yeah.
Right, so we talked about, I don't know, I'm pretty sure it wasn't Bruce Lee who started that rumor,
Yeah.
right? And even though Crowder isn't making that exact claim, that Bruce Lee said this about himself, he still makes it seem like Bruce Lee is a liar because he doesn't strongly emphasize that this myth had to have come about after Bruce Lee's death. You see, he doesn't stress that point.
Yeah.
So by being comedic towards it, he knows what he's doing.
Right.
He knows he's making Bruce Lee look bad. Right? Yeah. Now, I'm not so much of a Bruce Lee fan or fanatic that I dare you to make Bruce Lee look bad in any case. Dramatic actor? Bruce Lee?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Not really. He's no, I don't know, Cary Grant or...
Right.
He's not a lover. Okay? So, there are certain things in which Bruce Lee, would look bad. Okay? But as a martial artist? No.